welcome to episode 40 of the Killtocraft podcast. I am Vanessa, your host, and today I have for you plenty of FOs and whips to share with you. I hope you had a lovely New Year and Christmas, and thank you for coming back and spending some time with me. I really appreciate it. I have been away for a little while, and I'll explain that at the end of the episode. Also, a mini disclaimer that this podcast episode is going to be slightly strange. I did record an episode at the beginning of December that I didn't post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share maybe the FOs and the whips that I was doing then out of that episode. So it's like a podcast of the past. And then you will see me again for a podcast of the future. And I will share with you what I am working on now, and that will be the whole meat of the episode. So I hope you don't mind the disjointedness, but I thought I really don't want you to miss out on seeing that material because I were working on a lot of different things at the beginning of December, and you probably wanted to know where I was up to with those. So yeah, I will leave a little space here and fit that in. Hello and welcome to the Killtocraft podcast, episode 40. I am Vanessa, your host, and it has been a little while, so I'm a little bit nervous because, well, it never quite feels the same when you've had a really long time off and then you start podcasting and you forget your show notes and then you realise that you've forgotten something at the end when you've finished. So we'll see how this episode goes, but episode 40. It seems like a big milestone. It would be even bigger if I podcasted more often. However, time seems to escape me recently. And I'll just quickly mention, I got new glasses. Nobody at work really noticed. It took them like a good week or so until somebody spotted that I'd got new specs. So I'm like, I've got glasses to everybody. So yeah, I got a green pair. I'm really excited about them. I think they're nice. My mum and my partner helped me pick these out because I was struggling, and it's been 2 years since I had to pick glasses, and the first pairs that I got just on a pretty much a whim because I needed glasses in general because it was my first time needing to get them, and I wanted them to either be as good as or if not better in styling. So I've realised over the past 2 years some key things that I didn't like about either the glasses I were wearing or glasses that I've seen on stands, and went with those and got help from my two closest people. And I went for a green pair because I really liked the green. I wanted a funky pair and a basic pair. So my basic pair is black, but it's got green along the inside of the glasses. So this inside plastic section is green too. But these are my green ones, and I love them. So yeah, so I got new glasses. I feel very happy about it. It's been 2 or so months in the need of specs. Unfortunately, I put Yarndale first and spent a lot of my money in Yarndale, and then realised that, wait a minute, I now need to save the glasses because I can't be getting those too near Christmas. And it still felt too near Christmas because usually I get a lot of my gifts in November and I haven't been able to. So, boo. Anyway, oh my god, just realised it is December. Happy Advent, everybody. Yay! Woo, Christmas is coming. Holidays are coming. Holidays are coming. Anyway, I love Christmas, and last year was a little bit of a downer Christmas for me, so I'm really looking forward to it this year. I'm a little bit amped up and excited. So, yay! I wore my Christmas sweater at work yesterday and my Christmas socks. So, and they didn't look at me funny, so that's good. I think when it's the 1st of December, it warrants the Christmassy things. So, onto all things knitting. I might actually take my glasses off because it's got a bit of a reflective thing and it might bother some people. So if that's cool, I'll decant the glasses and I'll pop those over there. So, first things first, I have a couple of FOs. One of those FOs though is not with me. My partner is wearing it. So if you saw on Instagram, I had mentioned that I finished my sweater for Will, my partner, my fiance, and he absolutely loves it and has been wearing it. It's a really just standard plain stocking stitch, deep rib bands kind of sweater. He really wanted a basic sweater with no ease, so it's quite a nice fitted feeling sweater, and he wanted that for just every day under his leather jacket, so it wasn't too big and too chunky. So I did it in an Aran weight, and he's been wearing that under his leather jacket and absolutely loves it. It's a little bit more stylish than a couple of his other sweaters, which are just like basic fisherman's Aran sweaters, which he still wears, but I think he prefers his grey sweater. So it's all been very much worthwhile me knitting that for him. Thank God. Because I've been, as you know, the past few months, every time I've podcasted, I have been working on Will's sweater or my mum's cardigan. This is going to be another one of those episodes where I share that I've been working on Will's sweater and mum's cardigan. But I promise next time I will have some different projects to share with you. So he is wearing that today and he's absolutely loving wearing it. And the yarn that I used was actually the Aldi. It's an 80-20, so it's 80% acrylic, 20% wool, and it's their So Crafty Aran. Check on the back to make sure it's wool, got a bit of wool in it, but it is super soft. It's not squeaky at all, so it was actually a real pleasure to knit with, and it was super soft to knit with. I really enjoyed knitting it. I'm actually debating the next time that they do have their craft sales and they have the Aran big balls, that I will actually treat myself to maybe a couple of balls for myself. They were only $3.99 for a 400 gram ball, and I think it was about 800 meters, so it was top stuff. I have no problem in using acrylic yarn, but I do like my acrylic yarn to be of a nice standard, let's say. I want the stuff to last. I want the projects to last a really long time, and I was a bit worried that because of how reasonably cheap the yarn was, that maybe it wouldn't last very well. I was kind of expecting that maybe it might pill up because of how soft it felt. So after Will has worn it quite a number of times over the past few weeks, I actually had a look at it last night, and there is zero pilling on this sweater. It is still spot on perfect, even with it having a bit of wool content. So I'm really thrilled with that. So in future, I will be highly debating getting some for myself. It's a nice way to get a project if you're a little bit on the skinter side of things. So I'm really happy with that sweater. It's come out really nicely and he's loving it, and the yarn's alright. The one thing that obviously I still need to try, because wool lasts, you can manage wearing wool quite a lot until you need to wash it, and you know, even though it's got the acrylic side of the base in there, it still doesn't really need to be washed at the minute. Keep giving it the sniff test. But when it does, obviously I'll need to wash it, so that will also be another factor as to how well it washes, but I'll let you know. But yeah, so far, top yarn. I actually really enjoyed working with that, so I'll get some in the future. Good for cheap quality, good for if you're wanting to make a project for somebody else in your family who isn't wool respectable. I know a lot of people that don't know how to wash basic wool garments, shove them in with their normal clothes and damage them. So sometimes it's good to have that acrylic mix when you're not knitting for you or somebody who's a knitter. So that's why I get Will kind of the basic ranges, because sometimes he does his own washing. Well, he does our washing, but sometimes he doesn't realise. And because it's his garment, he will probably put it in the wash at some point. Whereas because my sweaters are woolly, he will never put those in the wash. He never puts any of my woolen stuff in the wash unless it is superbly by accident. He's done that only once, and one of my hats got jumbled up in like a little mountain of washing that I'd made in the bathroom, you know, from getting ready for showering, and he just picked it all up and shoved it in the washer and shrunk my week-old hat. So it very rarely happens, but it is good to have those woolly acrylic options for those family members. The next finished object that I have is actually just a pair of socks, a really pair of basic socks, nothing extra special. These were just a pair of socks that I did for while I was reading, but I haven't been reading quite a bit recently because I haven't had time. I've been working on Christmas gifts. Well, I've been working on a Christmas gift and wool sweater, so this was kind of an on-off project in between those if I fancied doing some knitting that was for me. And because I wanted these to be a quick project and a satisfaction project, I did these actually on a 2.75mm needle rather than a 2.5, which I normally use. So they are a little bit looser. That does not really bother me. I've worn these already twice in my socks and they don't look too bad. I think there's a small little bit of felting here. That's pretty much it. And this is both Regia yarn. I think this is an Arnie and Carlos colour, but I don't know what shade it is. It was just a deep stash skein that I got gifted to me. And then the blue is also Regia, but it's their baby mini ball skeins. And I decided to use it for heels and toes because it went with this colour really well. And I didn't think I'd have very much other choices to use that because I don't often have babies to knit for. The pattern that I used was the Rachel Coopy's Dave socks out of Coop Knits 2, and I like this because I like the afterthought heel that is a rounded heel. It's kind of decreased like you do on a hat, but it really cups my heel and it makes this section nice and deep enough that the top half of my sock doesn't get stretched out and horrible, which sometimes it does when you do Fish Lips Kiss Heel. I really love this pattern, and I've decided that over the past year or two of knitting socks more constantly that I don't like the Fish Lips Kiss Heel. I'm sure that there's plenty of people out there that are with me on this, but it is not big enough. It's like a tiny little short row section and it slips under my heel, and most of the time when I wear boots and I'm walking in them all day, I come home, take off my boots to find that my heel is under my heel. It's not actually on it. It's not cupping it. It's not stayed in place. It's fallen off and is not doing its heel job, and usually the leg of my sock, like this portion, is doing what the heel should have been doing. I don't want the leg of my sock to fall apart because the heel wasn't satisfactory. So I've decided that I'm not going to use that heel anymore, and that most likely I will just continue put in a line and continue a straight tube sock, come back and put in the afterthought heel, which is the Coop Knits heel. I did adapt this slightly because I didn't have the right amount of stitches. So what I did was I picked up 3 in between, and then on the first round, which was a play round, I increased I think 2 stitches to get me to the stitch count that I needed to do the rest of the heel, and that's because I was on a different needle size. but it doesn't really matter. And I didn't actually do my size, I did the smaller size because I figured with me being on a bigger needle it will be slightly bigger. So if I do the small size and a bigger needle it will become my size. So, and it fits perfect. So that was really good. I have decided that because I want to try some different heels, since kicking out the old Fish Lips Kiss heel, I decided that I want to find some different heels that kind of cater for my heel shape a little bit better and my instep shape. So the next time I'm going to try the New Depths heel by Becky Sorensen of the Soprano Knits podcast. I'm going to try out her heel on the Volca socks, and I purchased that fairly recently, and I'm looking forward to that, and I think I've got some yarn in mind. And I really love that pattern because it's got like a little bubbly texture, and I really like it's supposed to represent clouds, and I think that's cute. So I'm going to knit myself that, and I also picked up the Vanilla is the New Black sock heel pattern, and I've been told by Danny of Little Bobbins that that pattern fits amazingly and is a really good heel. So cross fingers, I might find 2 new heel patterns that I really enjoy. So I'm going to try those this month, I think. All being well. Because you don't know, I don't know what I'm going to cast on yet. It is the 2nd of December, and yesterday I was meant to actually cast on something new for myself, but instead I decided that last night I would try and get the in fact I might as well go on to it. I decided that I was going to finish off the sleeve top on my mum's final sleeve on her cardigan. So I decided to do that. Got it finished. Started sewing a portion of it in. I've not fully sewn the rest of it in. But then I was kind of too tired to... been suffering with a little bit of vitamin D deficiency again. I've noticed that... I've noticed how I've been feeling and how I'm getting into the low levels again because it's making me tired through the day because I stupidly kept forgetting to take them. So I'm now making sure that I remember to take them and I'm waiting for my high spirits to come back. But I finished one sleeve and this fits perfectly. When it's on, it just cups the top of my arm, the arm really nicely, and I'm nearly finished. I did have somebody say, like, because I usually say I'm not a crocheter. I'm not. And after the last episode, somebody said not a crocheter, kind of hinting at the fact that it's pretty darn good for not being a crocheter. Well. I don't really crochet. The last time I crocheted was about 2 years ago, or maybe a year ago. The project went a little bit shit-creek because of my tension, and I do know how to crochet. I know the basic stitches, except for when I've had a long gap between doing something, and usually I do mainly like granny squares. I've not... The top went completely south, so I never got to make that top. So my basic skill level is mainly just doing granny squares. And usually after a long period of time, I have to remember what all these stitches are. So I have in a notebook like the stitches and a little like written out example of how to do them. So like yarn over hook, hook through chain or whatever. And I have like a how-to guide to do all of these stitches in short so that I can quickly scan over and figure out how to do them. So I'm not a big crocheter. This project I did on a whim. So I'm just justifying myself here. But I'm going to give you a little bit of an example. I'm like kind of explaining that I'm not highly skilled in crocheting, but I am highly skilled in knitting. That's part of my job on a day-to-day basis. Those skills are very transferable into crocheting. I know how to make a garment, I know how to make a schematic, I know how to size up sizes, I know how to adapt a stitch pattern into a garment and to figure out the best way to do that. And so all those skills that I know from knitting are very much transferable into crocheting. The other skills that are transferable to crocheting is knitting, you know the stitches, knit and purl. There's loads of ways to adapt those, but you know that those are the basic stitches. The basic stitches in crochet, there's quite a few more. There's probably about 5 or 6, maybe even more than that. I don't know, because I'm not a big crocheter. I know the basics, like your single, your double crochet, your half treble, your treble, I know that much. However, I know how to sample for a stitch pattern. I know how to check gauge for a stitch pattern and how to use that gauge to create a pattern for a garment. So those skills that I know for knitting are again transferable into crocheting. So all of the skills I knew for knitting, I kind of pretty much say, well, surely if I know how to do them for knitting, I should be able to make them work for crocheting. And that's how I've made this entire garment. So yeah, first time garment, it is really super impressive for me to say that I'm not a crocheter, but it's only because I already know the skills from knitting that I've been even slightly able to do this. Even a lady at work said that that was pretty darn brave, but I have taken my time with this, and I have sat and I've thought about it. I haven't written up a pattern for this because I would not have a clue how to. I have just gone along and done it as I've gone, taking small steps each time. So when I've done the bottom half of the garment all in one and I got to the armhole shaping, I did the 2 fronts so that the armhole shaping would match. And then I did the back. I also made it so that when I'd done the neck shaping, I'd done it to match at both sides, so it should be correct. It's hard to show you it on the other side because I've got an armhole that isn't fully sewn in. So I don't really know how to crochet. I've never crocheted a garment in my entire life until now. This is my first garment. I'm not saying that everybody should go out and have a go and wing it. Like, I'd totally say crochet a garment from some patterns first. But the only reason I ventured into making this was 1, because my mum really wanted it and loved it, and I thought it'd be a nice surprise. 2, I wanted to challenge myself to see if I could actually do this, because I knew that even though I only had the basics, that surely I should be able to. And 3, why not give it a go? So that's pretty much my incentive, was the fact that I knew my mum really wanted this. So yeah, she's a very special woman and she's my best friend, and I wanted to make her something very special. And she did actually say to me fairly recently, because I had to tell her I was making this, because I had to see how big she needed her sleeves. My mum is the same, kind of approximately the same bust measurement as me, so I know that if it fits me, it will probably fit her. However, her arms are a different size and shape to mine. She's obviously a little bit older than me, but she also used to work out, and so she has firmer arm muscles than I do, and so her arms are a little bit more fuller. I didn't want to judge that if the sleeves fit me, then they'll fit her, and I'm glad I didn't, because there was a good 5 centimetres difference in our forearms, so that would have been a bad mistake. So they should fit her perfectly, all being well. But yeah, it's pretty much finished. I had wanted this ready and done for the 1st of December. I said that I was going to try and have both of my projects finished by Thursday. That didn't happen because I totally finished Wilts. I had a week where I was solely concentrating on getting this done. However, one of my sleeves didn't work out to the correct tension. This can still happen to you people. Even when you have the know-how, this sort of thing can still happen. I basically got a different colour and I tensioned the stitch pattern for the sleeves in the different colour. Measured it, worked out my centimetres to the stitches and the rows and all that sort of thing, and I panned it all out on graph paper how I was going to plot my increases, and stupidly enough I did an entire sleeve to the armhole, to the sleeve top. So I'd done all of this section and then measured the width across the arm at the top. Didn't measure where it should have done. So my gauge sample wasn't working out the same as my actual sleeve. When I checked my gauge sample, it was actually measuring 17 half trebles to 10 centimetres, but on the sleeve itself it was 19, so it's coming out a lot different. That being said, I decided to go via the tension that I had on the sleeve that I had just done, and check it, make sure what the stitches and rows were and noted it down. I then ripped out the sleeve and redid it to the gauge tension that I took from the sleeve, replotted my increases, did it, it measured perfectly fine. So that first portion of that week of solely working on this was a waste. Had to redo it all over again. And then I did the second sleeve in a couple of days, managed to get that totally done, but it's left me, I had to do the sleeve top last night, so it left me going over the date that I was expecting. And then I just have the borders to do, which I'm going to do all in one, all around the bottom, all around the front, around the neck, around the back of neck, down the other front, around the bottom, around back. And I'm going to do it all in one and do it for 2 centimetres, and then I'm going to do like a picot edge, chained edge, and that will also happen on the sleeves. I'm not going to rush this now because I'm so close to the end. There is no point in me putting pressure on myself, which I have been doing quite a great deal. I've had some pressurising things happening in my life that have gotten my anxiety flared up a bit, and I don't want to make it any worse. So I think that now, because I know I'm so close, I don't need to be pressurising myself. I can do this a little bit here and there and get those extra little things done. So that's what I'm planning on doing, and I should have this finished easily by Christmas. I also bought some T-pins, and I just need to get some foamy blocking boards because I'm actually going to block this over at my nan's house before Christmas, because I can't block it in the house because the cat, I have nowhere flat to block this out really that's spacious enough, and he will tread on it, maybe pull on it, he might even stand on some of the pins, which I don't want to happen, obviously. So my nan has a spare room that I was hoping I could use to pin this out, so I'm crossing my fingers she'll let me. But yeah, I do think that if you have the basic knowledge of crochet skills, you could definitely make yourself a top. if you have the basic knowledge of how to do a garment from scratch in knitting, then go for it. If you have the basic crochet skills, you could totally make a simple straight up drop shoulder top with sleeves. Obviously take it carefully, ask people if you need to, questions, but I don't see why you couldn't transfer those skills over from crocheting, knitting to crochet. If you've made yourself a knitted garment from scratch before, you could probably do a crochet garment too. So I haven't really been enjoying that project. I have to say that I'm definitely more of a knitter. I love knitting, and crocheting on that pretty much constantly over the past month or two has slowly been getting me down, and the only thing that's been keeping me going is seeing this end date coming up of being able to knit on my own things, which may seem silly, but when you love something more, it's not silly really, is it? And I've been keeping my crochet project in my knit and stitch bits bag, which I absolutely love. This is one of the like sweater sized large bags. I don't think she makes bags anymore, which is really upsetting because I love this bag, and I would love some more, so that's a real shame. And I love the print. So that's been in my knit and stitch bits bag. In my pink hazel gorgeous bag, which I absolutely love, this is what I bought myself from Pomfest as an extra treat, and it was the one thing that I knew I wanted in my life, was one of her bags, and I saw this gorgeous print and this gorgeous ties, drawstring, and I knew I wanted this one. It was just an impulse straight away. I had to. And then the lining. The lining is just absolutely fabulous. It made my day, and it makes my day still. The only unfortunate thing is it hasn't gotten as much of an outing recently because my other projects that I've been working on so intensely have taken this out of the limelight a bit, but it has been coming to me with me to knit group. So I started going to my local knit group, which is at a local yarn shop called Wool and Stuff, which sell a lot of commercial yarns but also some hand-dyed yarns, like Knitting Goddess. She does her own. She does some fibre spates and Coop Knits yarn. She also has some of the can't remember her name, that's gonna really annoy me. She's got another hand dyer. Danny talks about it sometimes. She's called Shadow. Is it Fab? No, it's not. I can't remember her name. I'll pop it in the show notes. But she has quite a little selection going on, which is really good, and I love going there. Everybody's super nice, and I like the socializing, making friends. And so I've been taking this to get this kind of finished a little bit. So this is my Sunset Highway sweater. Back a bit. This are yarns that I bought from Pomfest. If you want to know more about the yarns, you could check out previous episodes. It is coming on really nicely. I've tried it on, and I am doing the ribbing because I'm ending it sooner than it should be. So this is going to be not cropped, but it will come up to just below my waist. It will hit the top of some of my shorter waisted jeans, so it will go really nicely with my high waisted ones, and it will go really nice with a few of my yoked. I've got a few longer skirts that have yokes on them, yoke waistbands, which I really like because they slim your waist and they make your waist look like they're going in nicely and a bit more trim, and I love that. So this will just hit the bottom of the yoke waistband where the fuller bit of the skirt will start. I tried it on and I measured how much more I needed to do, so I knew how much more I needed to do from the underarm. And so I think I've got maybe another round, and then I need to cast off. Although I don't think I'm going to be casting off. I did find a sewn bind off that was really great and really stretchy when I was doing my thigh-high brioche socks, which I've got on today. These, because of the brioche, the sewn bind off was actually as stretchy as the brioche, if not a bit more, so I decided that it wasn't correct to use on the knee highs because they'd have just dropped down. However, I did realise that for a top-down garment, a stretchy bind off like that would be amazing on the bottom hem of a sweater, because sometimes doing a normal bind off seems a bit tight, and I worked that out on my True Friend sweater. So I'm going to try that on this for comfort, and I'm really excited to get it finished. I am a little bit apprehensive about what to do with the sleeves. I've only got 2 little 33-gram cakes left and a little bit left of the yarn that I finished the body with. The sleeves are meant to have a big band of like a black, blue and black section around the elbow area. It's really bold, it's really big, and I think it takes away from the yoke, and I don't really like that. It takes away from the yoke because this is magnificent, and why would I want a big block of colour that just strikingly takes away from everything this is. The other thing is I did the body on a bigger needle because of the colour work, kept it on the bigger needle, and I felt like it needed to be dropped down. So part way down here I dropped it down to a smaller needle, and then a smaller needle yet for the waistband, so it will go and tucker in a little bit, which I kind of like. I think it'll look nice because it'll snug into the waist a little, but it'll still look loose fitting. However, the sleeves I think I'd like a little bit tighter. On the pattern itself it shows them quite loose, and I don't like that kind of baggy looking sleeve. I am hoping that maybe I could use a smaller needle, maybe take some stitches out, and maybe have enough yarn to do a long sleeve. It's gonna be a little bit of trial and error, I think, that one, but I'm gonna go for it and see, because I know I'll love it better if I do it that way. We all have our own likes and dislikes, and it's worth changing a garment to make it what you want it to be. So I'm gonna have a go at that after I've taken some of the body, well, after I've taken the body off of the needles. But I really love this project. I think it's going to look gorgeous on, and I can't wait to get it done, and I can now focus on it a little bit more and give it a bit more love, so that'll be nice. Definitely good movie knitting, because when you're watching a film, just going round and round and decreasing sleeves is fun. I like it. Reminds me of socks. Now welcome back. That was the podcast of the past, and welcome to podcast of the future. Today is Saturday the 13th of January, so we're into the new year, a few weeks in, which is super exciting. And I thought I'd share a couple of finished objects with you before I got into any of my works in progress. So first of all, I have worked on a lot of projects, and in December, after I'd finished working on other people's gift knitting or crocheting, I did actually spend quite a bit of time finishing up projects, but I haven't got all of those. But I might put in a couple of pictures so you can see a few of those as a little slideshow, maybe. But I cleared up a few whips, and one of them was a pair of socks that I had on my needles since May or June? No, June, I think. It was before the Pom-Pom Fest. The Pom Fest happened. Get it right. And I'd been working on the Fika socks, which is by Coop Knits. Now, I had this sock finished in the first month of working on this, so in August I had this totally finished and done. But then I'd been working on so many other things. Just get my sock blocker. I had been working on so many other things that these got pushed aside that much that months later I actually got the second one finished. So this is what they look like on the sock blocker. Ooh, got a little pill going on there. It's a big one. Anyway, so I knitted these in the same colour as in the issue, the anniversary issue of Pom Pom, and it's the Kunzite colourway, I think that's how you pronounce it, and it has like a lovely heathered effect, so you can see that it's not just purple, there is slight tints of orange, like a peachy orange throughout this yarn, and all of her yarns, sock yarn, are like this, where if you look really closely there's more depth of interesting colour hidden in there, and I love them. I think they're beautiful. Really gorgeous purple, which is one of my favourite colours. I have noticed, I've wore these a few times, but I am noticing, looking at these, that although they don't look too bad, this here, only wore them maybe about 3-4 times, and then I've just noticed this, which is pretty a big amount of pilling to happen. So I don't know if this is, I do wear them in my boots and things, but this is quite a lot of pilling happening to say that they're a newish pair of socks. Anyway, I suppose it's not too bad, they just fluffed quite a lot to what I was expecting to happen. You can see the fluffing. It's quite ample. Anyway, I do really like these socks and I am glad that I had them finished, and if only I had just spent a decent amount of time working on them, because I'd got the leg of the second sock pretty much finished, and I did about this much, and then I turned the heel, and literally in, my gusset ends here, literally in a day, like an evening, like a few hours at work and an evening, I finished the entire foot. So I could have had these done way quicker. I just didn't give them the time of day because I was working on other things, which is a little bit sad. But I'm happy to have them completed because they're a beautiful pattern. And if I didn't say, these are by Rachel Coopy, and she is such an amazing knitwear designer. She does socks and hats and mainly accessory items, but they're all this fabulous. Really interesting designs, and I really love pattern socks. So twisted stitch socks really do it for me. I love doing a patterned pair of socks. They're interesting, they keep your mind busy. When I first started knitting, I always used to think that, oh, this is really mindless, like because you're having to concentrate so much when you're a beginner knitter. But that was on the easiest of things, and I've noticed that to get that same effect now, I need things that are like this. So that's why I really love patterned things, because they give me that, they give my brain that relaxation and that time out that sometimes I need. I'm very much an overthinker. I do suffer with anxiety, and my mind, anxiety sufferers are very much in their head a lot, and you just need to shut that off sometimes, and the way I do it is with pattern knitting. So sometimes when I go on about mindless a project's being like mindless to me. It's things like this that might be quite overwhelming for some people, but for me I need that. But anyway, I'm really happy to have these done because they were way old as a whip. Well, it feels like it because every time I've done a whip it's probably taken a month maybe or so, and not like 5 or 6 months this past year. The other whip that I can share with you today is finished object, is my fiance's sweater that I made him for Christmas. He's not wearing it for the first time in ages. I gave him this on before Christmas. I made him it just as a general gift, to be honest, because he'd asked me for a sweater. And I could have made this for him for Christmas, but because I was crocheting something for my mum for Christmas, I knew I wanted this done way before that. And with it being cold, I knew he'd want to wear it. So I gave him it as I'd finished it. Literally, as I got it sewn up, sewn last end in, I threw it to him. I wasn't going to block it. Mainly because he's not bothered about that sort of thing, and it wasn't that bad. It was the right correct measurements, and it doesn't really look wrinkled or untidy, so I decided that I wouldn't block this and he could just wear it straight away, because he's a man. He doesn't want his things blocking before he wears them. He's not like us. He's just happy to get it on and wear it, and he literally did straight away. As I threw it over to him, he put it on for the rest of the evening, which I think was only an hour or so, but he wore it, and then the next day he wore it, so I knew he loved it. So that's really sweet. He'd given me a photo of a sweater he really liked that he found on Pinterest, and asked me if I could make him something similar. So I wrote all of his measurements down, and I drafted up a sweater for him, which is this. He wanted a deep rib at the bottom. He wanted it to be quite, not tight, but snug fitting. He wanted it close fitting so he could wear it under his leather jacket with his jeans. So he wanted a quite smart jumper. He wanted it in grey, and luckily at the time we were doing a grocery shop at one of our local Aldis, and they do the So Crafty Aran. It's 400 grams, it's maybe £4, it's not expensive. It's a acrylic and wool blend. It is so soft to knit with, and I loved every second of knitting with this, and it is really wearing quite well. There's a few pills on the underarm, but it is wearing quite nicely. So I think in future, if he ever wants another sweater, I would probably go for this. I picked this because although it's a wool acrylic blend, it makes it easier for him to care for and to wash. I also thought that with it having a slight bit of wool, then it will keep him a little bit cozy. But honestly, he's not really bothered about wools or acrylics. So I didn't go for anything too special. I decided that the more commercial branded yarns were more perfect for him. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. So finished this, got it off the needles. I'm really happy with it, and it fits in perfectly. So I might do the little what I was saying earlier about doing, I can't even think of the word, a slideshow. Bloody hell. I might put a slideshow right at the end in the credits of some of the things I've finished, so you can see them since you last saw me, and then at least I don't have to show you everything that I've caught up with. The next thing I think will be whips. So over the holidays, I had this little bit of a niggly feeling after finishing my mum's cardigan at the beginning of December. Yeah, roughly beginning of December. I couldn't quite relax with my knitting, so I spent a lot of time actually finishing old whips so that I had new space for new whips as the new year came round. The only thing that I did start was at Christmas. I didn't start on Christmas Eve because I had a massive incident where I nearly killed my computer. I accidentally spilt coffee all over my laptop and I was in tears. That laptop means a lot to me. I've had it for 2 years. My mum and dad bought me it for Christmas and I never have had my own laptop ever. Even this is a computer that I've had for a while that is second hand from my family. And I've never really been able to massively afford a computer unless I went out and got it on credit or something, which I don't like doing. And they discussed getting one for my brother that Christmas, and I think I'd made a little bit of a little skit just as a joke, and my mum knew that. About like, blimey, I didn't get one of those when I was his age because they couldn't afford to do that. Lo and behold, as Christmas came, I went round to my parents to open my presents with them because they wouldn't let me have them. I never even clogged as to why. And she put this big long box wrapped up on my lap and told me to open it. So I started opening it, and as I ripped it open, I saw the Toshiba logo, which is the ones that they'd been looking at for my brother. It still didn't click with me that that's what they got me until a second later. And as I ripped the other side of the paper, I realised the size of the box, and I was like, and I just burst into tears. I just could not believe what they bought me, and it was a very sentimental gift, and they said that they bought me it because they knew that I work hard and I don't always have the money to cough up for such an expensive item. So that was really sweet of them. And so spilling, after obviously what's happened over the past year with my mum and things like that, spilling then my coffee all over it, I was absolutely beside myself. I luckily picked up the laptop as soon as possible, picked it up so that the coffee just dropped from it, and it was still on. So then my immediate reaction was to turn it off without tipping it to the right side again. So I managed to turn it off, and we held it upside down in a V shape for a while on paper towels. We wiped the excess off the keyboard, and then I was panicking because I could see that there was still water coming, there was still coffee coming from the inside of the computer. Took out the battery, there's nothing affected there. But then I went a little bit nuts and started unscrewing the entire back because I was panicking and some of the coffee had gone through. So me and Will carefully dampened some of the coffee out of there, and then we left it over our little oil radiator kind of on the washing line for about 5 hours. I didn't go to bed that night until early hours of the morning because I really wanted to make sure my laptop was okay. I did not have a relaxing Christmas Eve at all. Lo and behold, before I went to bed, it still turned back on and it was fine. I then went and got up in the morning and I checked it and it was still okay. and it had been sat just next to the heater, not right on it, but just next to it, adjacent to it, to hopefully dry it out. People kept asking me if I had rice. Now I know that mobile phones in rice, it takes the moisture away from it. Fortunately for me, I did not have any rice in the house, and I certainly could not get any because it was Christmas Eve and all the shops were shut by 4. This was 11 at night. So I was super unimpressed with myself. However, it is still fine. The only problem with it is there's a little issue with my disk drive. However, I don't know if that's actually because we had to take it away from the computer, so we took it out. I did know that some coffee did get in there. It might need a new one, or it might be how I've connected it back up. So we're going to take it at some point to a computer repair place and get them have a look. But I don't think a new DVD drive for in there is going to be extortionate. So I'm willing to cough up the money to get that repaired. So phew, and luckily I don't have sugar in my coffee, so nothing will really corrode in there. It said that one of the main things to worry about is if you've had sugary drink and you've spilled it over it, because it will corrode the metal eventually. And luckily I don't, so fingers, it'll be okay. Anyway, me wearing on about that. I ended up casting these on a few days later because I couldn't bear the thought of casting them on then, and it just felt like bad feeling. But my fiance did get me this really super cute pusheen wash bag that I've been wanting before Christmas that I'd seen. This came from Marks and Spencer's, and it had a couple of pusheen body washes. It was like in the child's presents area, and of course I had to have it because it was amazing. If you heard that, that's my lovely neighbours. So for my little Bobbins Christmas Eve knits, I am using colouring book yarns in the Vintage Holiday colourway. I got this last March, and I bought this. Somebody actually sent me a message saying that she'd got an update if I hadn't realised, and by the time I'd noticed and bobbed on, a lot of the colourways had gone. But 2, and one of them was the Vintage Holidays colourway, which is really pretty and bright and colourful and me, and so this is the one that I chose, and they are awesome. So I'm trying to use as much of the yarn as humanly possible. I've gotten to about 61 grams left here, bitch, I meant to say which. Sorry. Which I have plenty left for the next sock and a bit over, so that I'm not leaving it too close. But yeah, look how fab they are. I did a very small gusset, and so they'd make a bigger short row heel, which is really nice. And I also worked them on 2mm needles instead of a 2.5mm, and that's just because I wanted these to last a lot longer if possible, and I thought I'd try out doing them on a tinier needle size. But I love the colours. I think they're really fun. I'm super happy with them. And then for, usually I do a normal long tail bind off, which is fine, but I decided to do the sewn bind off that is in Wendy D. Johnson's Toe Up Socks book, and She explains a sew and bind off in there, which is really simple. It's really simple. You sew through 2 stitches purlways and then pull your thread through, and then you sew through 1 stitch, through the first stitch knitways and slip it off, and then you go through purlways through 2, and then you go through knitways through 1 and slip it off, and it's really good. It's really stretchy. It does look, when it's off the needle, like it does bellow a bit. However, when you've got it on, it sits like and evens out, so it's not bellowing when it's on the leg, so there's no issue there at all. I used to be a little bit funny about this happening. However, if the sock fits. So I love it. I'm really happy with that. So I just need to start the next one. I actually finished this one last night, so I need to cast on the following sock, and I'll hopefully have them done this month to go towards my box of socks, which would be nice. I did do the box of socks last year, but I didn't officially do it because some of my yarn weights were different. But I did actually get 12 socks done, and that's actually counting a pair of knee highs, so technically I probably would have been okay to enter without my DK pair of socks, but it still classes as 1 pair, not like 2 pairs, so even though you got the extra length. So I didn't do that, but officially I did, unofficially I did join in last year. The next thing that I cast on was something that is in my I Heart You bag, which is a maker from Canada, and I won this on the 2 Tips podcast sweater along last year, which is Elise. Hello. And I got some Rico So Soft Aran, which is 300 meters, in this like really nice blush kind of corally colour, and I kind of didn't know what to do with it. I was going to make a hat. I wasn't getting the right tension for the hat that I wanted, so I scrapped that idea, and then I decided to cast on the Queensland Beach. This is from the Take Heart book by Fiona Alice, which you can get via Pom Pom Press, and it's, I'll just double check that that's the right name for it. I'm sure it is. Here we are. Yes, Queensland Beach. Try not to show you. It's a beautiful headband, and I don't wear headbands really. This has kind of a use that I'm hoping will work. I'm having to wear earplugs now to bed most weekends because our new friends are really not necessarily noisy, but they like music and they like to have friends over, so I'm wearing earplugs quite a bit to counteract the problem, which isn't a peaceful sleep when they keep dropping out sometimes. So I have decided to make an headband for bed in hope that it will kind of help me keep those earplugs in. This might actually look kind of cute. Anyway, I'm around about halfway there, and then I've not knit anything on this in a little while, but I might do a repeat a day and try and get that done. The yarn is really nice. I think it is mainly an acrylic yarn. There might be a slight percentage of wool, but it's really super soft. It is definitely soft. It's soft for a baby, it's soft for an adult, and Rico yarns wear really well. I found. This is actually Rico yarn. This is my Corona sweater, which is out of one of the issues of Pom Pom. It's one of my favourite sweaters, and as you can see, there is not really any pilling. I've not ever depilled this sweater. I don't have a depiller, which I need to get because my other a couple of my other sweaters are really pilling badly, and it's because they're merino sweaters, so I'm gonna have to purchase one of those. Anyway, babbling on. So this is my Queensland Beach headband, which is mainly for nighttime use, and I'm using my Knit Pro Zing's 40cm long straight needles, which I love. And then while I had a few days to myself, I wasn't really that well. I'll explain a bit more about that in a little bit. But I decided that on New Year's, New Year's makes me feel a bit sad. I spend New Year's usually with friends, because Will spends it with his family and friends. And I usually come back and spend it with my friends. This year, one of my main friends is actually in China, so I didn't get to spend it with her. And my other friend, I'm not seeing her quite as much as I used to do, because she's enjoying her time with other people. Trying to be a bit diplomatic about that. There's nothing wrong with us friendship wise, but let's say she had a bit of a breakup with a partner that she'd been with a really long time, and now she's getting to know new friends, new male friends. So I've been left kind of ditched aside. I'm not bitter about it, it's fine. However, so this year I'm not bothered. I don't mind spending it with the cat, but I spent it in my home with films. It was a really nice time, except for I had a bit of a lull at about 8 o'clock where I started to feel a bit down and out, and not in the best of moods, I think, because I weren't feeling too great. So I decided to get my sewing machine out, and I decided to make a last minute 2017 project. And I'd had the fabric for this cut out forever, and I'd just not made it. So, and I'd bought the drawstrings and everything, but I made myself a little bag, which I've just realised is covered in fluff. Made myself a little project bag, and you can't see that because it says, there we go, Muggle. Put my Muggle badge on it, which I think Vicky of Sweet Leaps sent me. But I made myself a black, nice, it's not canvas, it's more of a thick weight, a heavyweight cotton, and it's really quite nice. And I used the tie-dye fabric that I had for a skirt. I used some of the remaining of that for the lining, which I really love, and it's perfect. Love it, it's so cute. And it fits in my new backpack really nicely as well. So, in here I have started a new project. I haven't put all of the yarn in here because otherwise the shawl wouldn't fit in. But I've got my yarn, a few cakes of the yarn at the bottom. The yarn that I'm using is Hayfield Aran Bonus. It's one of the 400g big, massive Aran balls that you can buy. And I have had this yarn for a really long time, aiming to do a shawl. And I found this shawl early last year and really knew what this yarn was for, but then I never got a chance to start it. So I've made the lovely effort of casting it on, and this pattern was gifted to me by the lovely Jenny of the Tiny Paper Foxes, or the Woolen and Handmade podcast. Hello Jenny. She gifted me this gorgeous pattern for a birthday present last year, and this is the Packer Street shawl, which is by Soft Sweater. Just one second, just double check. Soft Sweater Knits, and I love it. So just gonna try and show you it a bit better. So it creates like these almost leaf-like shapes, which you can see here. It's lace. There is some lace front and back shaping. There we go. It's a very big shawl. It's kind of like a schlanket kind of shawl. It's supposed to be massive. And at the minute it's looking fairly scrunched up. But I'm onto my second repeat of the second chart, and I'm using some Stormtrooper stitch markers, which I'm loving. So this project is bringing me a lot of interest and joy than I thought it would. Thought I'd get a bit annoyed with the lace because I'm not the biggest fan of lace projects. I prefer more cabled knits, but I'm absolutely loving this. It's one of those projects again where it's giving me a bit of focus, so I'm really enjoying it. And I'm knitting this as a part of the commercial yarn along that Amy of the Stranded Dye Works podcast is hosting. And I'm also, all of these projects that I've just shared with you for my whips are also counting as part of my knit 1000 grams. So I'm trying to knit 1000 grams before I even think of buying any more yarn. And I'm trying to watch my yarn weight this year. So I am keeping a tally of how much I've used as to how much I bring in, to try and not to keep it level, and if so less than, because I bought a lot of yarn in last year, but a lot more. I brought in as much as I knit last year. In fact, no, double probably what I knit, and I can't keep doing that because I don't have space. I live in a flat, so I need to use quite a lot of my yarn this year, if possible. Which takes me on to my next whip that I'm going to be starting today. So yeah, I'm really loving this shawl. There's not much to say at the minute because I'm still in the early stages, but I can't wait for it to get bigger. And I'm working on my Dreams Knit Pro Dream wooden needles, which aren't the sharpest of needles, but I really like working with these because they're smooth, they're slick, and sometimes yarns just feel like they knit up easier on wooden needles to metal needles, depending on what you're working on. So yes, that's my Parker Street shawl. I can't wait to progress a little bit more with that. I'm not a massive shawl person, but recently I've had this urge for some big shawls because those are the ones that I actually do wear. Whereas small shawls just go a little bit, they only get worn in the spring, and I wear them for maybe just walking to work to keep my neck a little bit warm because it's cool on a morning. Otherwise I don't really wear the smaller shawls. The next project that I'm wanting to start today, I don't want to pronounce it wrong. I believe it's in English it means first. So I'm starting the hat. This is by Jessica Gore, and she's done this for the Woolfolk Wool Elements Winter 2018 collection, and this is the hat. My lovely friend Twee drew for her Harvest Hat-along prizes, and a set of the prizes were for joining in her conversation in her group, and I won one of those, which was really nice and fun to actually win in something I was slightly co-hosting in, so that was kind of funny but nice. It cheered me up no end, and I'd had this eyed at the time, and so she kindly gifted this over to me, and I just love the details. So it's got like I think it's a reverse fisherman's rib edging, that's it, and then it's got all these really nice cables and texture, and the tiniest pom-pom ever, which I love. So I really like this, and I think it's going to become one of those kind of hats that I will pick up and wear a lot more than a lot of my other old hats. So I really want to cast this on. I then thought about it for a while, because even though I want to cast it on, I don't really necessarily want to bring in more yarn, which was, as I've said, is an issue. Even though it's for a small project, you still think to yourself, well, that's 200 grams that I brought in to knit to get rid of again. So I decided to have a little bit of a think about it, and I was thinking, well, I could use some of the Aran weight, but it's not quite right because this is in worsted, and I think that Aran weight would be too thick, and I don't want it to spoil the effect of the hat, because even though it is a thicker worsted weight yarn, I think it still looks delicate, whereas maybe if I did it in an Aran weight, it might not have that same feeling. It might look too bulky, not quite right, and it might not fit the same. You know, it brings up a few issues. So I was sat thinking for a long while, for a few days, about what I could use, and then it came to me that I had in my stash something I'd won a while ago from Farmer's Daughter Fibres, and so it's her card, and this is her squish worsted 100% merino wool, and it's 218 yards, colourway is horsebelly, 100 grams, and I decided I had 2 skeins of this, which would just be enough with some left over to make the hat. And I think it's like a perfect colour, because it's not the same, but it's just as beige and just as nice. This is a good colour representation. When I take this away, it goes lighter because I'm near the window. It has some light speckles here and there, slight flecks, but it's just a really nice colour, and I think for a hat it'll be really beautiful. So I had these 2 and another 2 colours in the giveaway prize that I'd won, and the other 2 colours kind of was all for a shawl, but the yardage wasn't quite right. She'd sent me the pattern for the shawl, and she was knitting the shawl herself as well, and she even messaged me later saying, you were right, there isn't quite enough to do the shawl, I'd worked out the yardages wrong. So, and at the time I was like, maybe I won't make it, because even though I could just not do a certain repeat or whatever and have the shawl, it just won't be quite right. So this is sat waiting, and I thought I was going to make another shawl in the meantime, and I have seen a couple of things, but they just didn't click with me. And then this hat pattern, I then thought, oh, there's 2 skeins of beige, like taupey, beigey worsted yarn that I have in my stash that was for that shawl, would be perfect. And I did actually have a little conversation with Will saying, do you think that it's bad of me to not do that shawl, even though this was meant for that? And he said, no, you do what you want with the yarn, you won it, it's your yarn now, you choose what you want to make. So, and I think he's right. So these are going to be caked up today, and I'm going to start myself a new hat. So that's really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you, Twee, for the pattern. I'm so excited by it. It's one of those that I know is going to keep me very quiet and busy, which is what I need. So, probably said so a real lot in this episode, sorry. The next thing that I've been making sewing as of recent is I've actually picked up my quilt. It's nowhere near being finished. I've I've actually sewn 5 rows up. I've got another 7 to add. I decided to stop waiting around for... I'd gotten all of these colours and I'd cut them all out, and when I laid out the quilt to the size that I really wanted for my bed, there wasn't enough of the yellow, and I was really kind of disappointed. However, that was for the pattern that I'd planned on doing. I decided to change the pattern, and I also decided to change the size of the quilt as of recent, so that I would stop sitting on this little pile of fabric and just thinking what to do with it, because it's not to my specifications, my original specifications. So in the end, I decided to put that aside and to resize my specifications, and I worked out a new set of measurements, and I decided to make a quilt that will fit for the sofa, and it will fit. It's just about as long as me, and it's about 1.5 meters wide, which will fit on our sofa. So this is it so far. And I'm in love with it. I think it's going to be amazing. I'm enjoying the process. I'm enjoying the process of it, and I'm so happy I've started it. I had all my blocks actually cut out, so all I needed to do was to arrange them in the order that I wanted, and I put those in piles with row labels so I knew, and I ironed and checked the size and the shape of them before I started so that they weren't too far out. The ones that were, I swapped them for another square to make it more correct, the blanket more correct, which I'm glad I did, because some of them were cut slightly janky for some reason. I then sewed them into rows, and now I'm sewing them into the quilt top, which I'm really excited about. And I'm just glad that I got on with it. So I've been nesting my seams, so they're really neat and tidy. It fits together like a puzzle. It's so nice. I don't really know if this for me is something I will do as a complicated project, you know, doing all the triangles and the weird shapes and fitting tessellated shapes together. I don't know if that's really for me. It takes a lot of brain, well, not a lot of brain power. It takes a bit of maths, working things out and how things piece, and I don't know if that's really for me, doing the complicated stuff. However, I've really enjoyed doing the squares, so we'll see how things go in the future after I finish this one. But I'm now looking really forward to the fact that I could get my batting and my backing fabric and my flossers to tack the quilt together, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm glad that I started it. It's just been sat there wasting in a pile, getting dusty, and there was no reason for it really, other than it didn't measure what I originally wanted. I had like an epiphany where I was like, well, why not just make it smaller? So that's all I have to share with you for today, and although it's only a few things, it seems to have taken me a really long time to share them. So this might be quite a long episode when I add the whips and FOs on from my last video that I actually recorded. But I hope you enjoy the episode and you enjoy seeing what I've created, and I hope you had a lovely Christmas, and I hope you enjoyed your new year. I have written in the Ravelry group, which is the Killtocraft podcast, a little explanation as to why I had a bit of an hiatus, and it's mainly to do with a bit of an injury that I've had. I've been struggling to get around again. I've hurt some ligaments or muscles in my back, in my lower back, from stress and tensing, which I actually injured last year, and because I've been a little bit stressed again, it's flared it up and I've been struggling. So I won't be drawing prizes for the Harvest Hass-along or the Brioche Cal, mainly because I'm struggling to get around and going far walking, so I don't want to push it too much and go far and then not be able to get home without making it worse. So for the time being, I'm going to not draw the prizes until probably mid-February or end of February. So if you can please bear with me on that one, but do keep an eye on the episodes that I produce between now and then. I'll also mention it on the Ravelry group if I have drawn the prizes, just so that people will see that and probably check the episode. Obviously I want to keep it quite fair in the fact that if you watch it on a regular basis, then you will know about it. So yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. So I am back now, hopefully for the long term. It's nice to be back, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Have a lovely weekend, and thank you for joining me, and I will see you soon. Bye!